right, the Red McDaniel interview, 924, take 2.
Okay, so let's see, where did we leave off? We wanted to talk about, I just spoke it before I left here. Okay, so I'm going to go back and visit for a moment this. There's a difference between, certainly you survived the Hanoi prison systems, but there is a way in which you did not just survive, you thrived. As you said, there's a way in which you came out a better man than you went in. Can you speak to that? What was the difference?
Well, I think had I known while I was there how our story would be used since we've been out, because I've learned through the years that people want to hear what we have to say, and I think it has some value, but I think had I known that then, existing for those 6 years would have been a lot easier. But when you're there, you're just thinking of survival, not thinking of that. But as I look back on my 46 years now of freedom, we've touched a lot of lives, and a lot of people are interested in what we have to say. And we realize there's some value in what we can pass along. Because, as I said earlier, it comes in many different forms, but it comes in all of our lives. And when it comes, you've got to have something to hang on to. And for me, it was faith.
And remembering this is to help young leaders answer the questions, what should I do to become a better officer, to become a better leader, to better prepare for the day that responsibility is going to be given to me? One of the things we talked about is it seems in the modern world, fewer and fewer people have the ability to be alone with themselves. You spent weeks, months, years in solitary conditions where you had to, it wasn't just this next 4 hours, it was this next 40 hours. And then another 40 hours. And the play of just light passing to night, again to light, must have been the only clock you had for years. What can you say to a young person of today to encourage them to develop the muscle of what it means to be alone with oneself?
Dan, I'm going to echo that before you answer. I would touch on the tragedy of, it's not the pain we go through, the tragedy is letting that pain be.
Yeah.
So that when the things that are bad are happening, it's learning from it and coming out on the other side is better. And the fact that you've seen a lot of good that's come out of things that were bad. So I would incorporate that in talking to the future officers of tomorrow.
Yeah, it's thinking of all the good that comes out of tragedy. You know, it's not the tragedy that's so bad. The worst part of tragedy is the waste of that tragedy, waste of that pain, and the waste of that experience. And when you can use tragedy that comes in many different forms, when you can use that to be a better person and to make another person a better person, you're money ahead, I think.
And what about the ability to be alone with oneself?
I'm sorry?
What about the ability to be alone with oneself?
Well, we had no choice there because I spent a lot of time in isolation, and I lived for 4 years with 1 or 2 men per cell. And in fact, I lived with one guy, Bill Metzger, so long, he took my stories and embellished them and told them back to me. And I might recognize it having been my original story. But, you have to learn to live alone, and just you have to have. I played mental games, recite the poems that I remembered. Gunga Din, East West Ballad. I'd say them over and over, day after day. And when we would get a Bible, which the enemy gave us periodically for propaganda purposes, we didn't read from the Bible. We would copy from the Bible. And we needed ink, which we didn't have, so we'd take a bamboo broom and take a little stick off, follow it down to a point. We needed ink. We tried brick dust in water. That didn't work. Methylated in water didn't work. Blood in water didn't work. The only thing that would work would be cigarette ashes in water, because it would be a dark spot. And in those days, we were getting 3 cigarettes, and I had quit smoking in 1968 when the Surgeon General report came out. But when I got to captivity, they gave us 3 cigarettes, and to me, that was 3 events, 2 meals and 3 cigarettes. And I thought the height of optimism was a prisoner of war expecting to die of lung cancer. So I took those cigarettes and I smoked them. But I did quit. 2 years before I came out, I quit, so I came out a non-smoker. But we would copy from the Bible with that ink, cigarette ashes and water, and the enemy would take the Bible out the next day, and when they did, we had copied from it all night. We'd take the copy that we had made from the Bible and hide it into the wall, which were 2 cinder blocks, 8 inches with an 8-inch void in between, so a 24-inch wall. We'd hide it into that void, and the next night, we'd get it out and commit it to memory. And we did that over and over, and that's how we used the Bible they gave us for propaganda purposes, was trying to retain something for future reference.
Do you remember a stanza from the poem Invictus?
I do, yes. I'm trying to think. I get them confused, but I remember that. That's the one that started.
It matters not how straight the gate.
Yes, I do. I do remember that, but I haven't said them for so long. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged the punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul.
So
Good words.
We're going to have you read that.
Okay.
Okay? Because it's such a powerful.
Okay.
Just take your.
Oh, it is. Yes.
Take your time with it. Kent, you ready?
Are you ready?
Yes.
It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my faith. I am the captain of my soul.
What do those words mean to you, sir?
Though true words are ever spoken, I got a great amount of inspiration from these words. And I did. I haven't repeated them for so many years, but I became very familiar with these words, and they were very meaningful to me because you are the captain of your soul.
In other words, the Vietnamese could take so much away from you.
Yes.
They could hurt you in ways that are unimaginable, but there was something they could not take from you. Can you speak to that?
Exactly.
Can you speak to that for others to understand?
Well, it's just that, anything that you can preserve that the enemy can't take, it will strengthen you. It gives you a little something, and we lived in a total vacuum there. The only thing we had with us in those prisons were what we brought in our hearts and our minds, nothing more. And when I came out in 1973, every day of 2,118 days had identity. I knew what happened that day, who moved in, and who got caught communicating, who was tortured. But now all that has faded. But when you live in a vacuum like that, but I came out with a great strength, which helped me in my commands of ships, was the ability to remember names and to commit to memory poems that I would go over. I came out with an uncanny ability to remember telephone numbers. I have in my head today hundreds of telephone numbers that I haven't used for 15 years that are still there. And I'm sure it crowds out a lot of the good stuff I should know, but it came out with an unusual ability to commit to memory things that other people don't do.
And there was another one of your fellow POWs, one of the few, if not the only non-commissioned officer, correct? Doug Hegdahl.
Doug Hegdahl, yes. Doug Hegdahl committed to memory all the POWs, some 700 or 800 POWs, I think, that he would do kind of cyclic and repeat that. He was a really, Doug was a unique guy. The enemy asked him one day how he got, what kind of plane he was flying, how he got shot down. He said, I wasn't flying. He said, I was walking on a ship. I fell off a ship, and they wouldn't believe that for a couple of weeks. And finally they said, if you were on a ship, how big was your ship? He says, I don't know. he said, I have no idea how large it was, but he said, if you'll start walking, when you get to the length of where my size of my ship is, I'll tell you. And so the guard started walking, and Hegdahl said, no, keep going. And finally, after 2 or 3 stops, he said, stop there. And they measured the distance from start to stop and wrote it down and came to Hegdahl, and Hegdahl said, how large is my ship? And they said, no need to know, military secret. So,
I love that story. And Doug was an extraordinary story.
yes, he was. And it meant a lot to us because when he came home, he's the only guy that came home of the 11 that came early. He's the only guy that came with the blessings of the group. And the others, had to sign things that they would not bomb Hanoi again and say anti-American things to come home. But Doug Hegdahl came with the blessings of the leadership.
And my understanding is he memorized, I think he did it to the tune of Old McDaniel Had a Farm.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he did. Yes, he did.
And that he memorized more than just the names of the POWs. He also memorized what else? Their home phone numbers and their hometowns.
Very well could. I don't know. He was a unique individual.
It was really extraordinary. Okay. Oh, let's talk about, you talked about a sense of humor. And Ev Alvarez said to me that the Vietnamese never really understood the American soldier. They didn't know why they couldn't beat him. But I guess it was Kat said to Ev on the day that he was leaving, we defeated the French, but we actually weren't able to defeat you. And this war you waged behind bars, maybe we lost the war in Vietnam, but something about the war you waged in that prison system even struck your captors. Can you speak to me about that a little bit, about this American soldier? What did it mean? What did you have?
Well, I think we had, number one, we had maturity, education that no other prison ever had. We were better educated, career-oriented aviators for the most part. And so we did better, but were expected to do better. And I think the enemy had never seen that before, and not like the 19-year-old soldier right off the farm. We were career-oriented aviators for the most part, and I think that served us well.
And can you speak a little bit about some of the things the Vietnamese wanted to know? For instance, Bob was talking about they wanted to know how many chickens his father had. Did you encounter some of those questions?
They did. The enemy would use us to train the guard. The guards were not allowed to speak English, because if the guard spoke English, we could talk to the guards and perhaps bribe the guards. So they made sure the guards, to teach, let's see how that goes. The enemy would not let us learn Vietnamese, because if they knew we knew Vietnamese, we'd be able to talk to the guards and get them to do things they weren't supposed to do. So all the guards learned English, and they would learn on us. And then we'd be called up for, say, a couple of months every day to meet with 3 or 4 guards that would ask us questions, and we would answer. They'd say, what do you have in your house? What kind of furniture? And what does each room have? What each bathroom has? And they were doing that to teach the guards. And the guards would always harass us, in doing that. And then on graduation day, they'd have all the officers there for the young enlisted to graduate by quizzing us. And the officers would listen to them quiz us, and then it was payback day, because they would harass us on a daily routine, but on test day, we pretended we didn't understand the guards, so that was the way we paid them back.
You also taught them English phrases that were at times humorous. Do you remember any of those?
I remember one, yes. A guard, one of my cellmates told the guard, he said, screw you. And the guard said, why you screw you me? So I thought that was a funny way of saying it.
And I think one of your cellmates taught one of the guards, I think he was trying to teach him some vernacular, but he said, basically walking around saying, I'm queer, I'm queer.
Yeah, yeah.
And he thought he was saying, I'm cool.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the returning warrior. When you came back to the States, the country needed heroes. The country needed to feel good about something out of the war, and you were the poster child for that. But you had your son and daughter, your wife waiting for you, and there had to be a transition coming home after these years of deprivation. And today in modern warfare, we find the same thing. Sometimes returning warriors find themselves, maybe things are being asked of them that they don't really are capable yet of giving, but other things are not being asked of them that they need. Can you speak to the returning warrior? Were there things that people understood about you, and then things that you felt kind of like you needed to make that more effort to communicate?
Well, I think our captivity was longer than any previous war, and I think that people were wondering how we were able to survive all those years. And again, it was the leadership that we had in captivity. It was the educational level that we had. And I think we realized that we had something to offer the American people, and that's why most of us have done a lot of public speaking to people. And I think the people are interested in Vietnam because it was our first losing war. How did it happen? Well, it's because our nation was greatly divided. We committed to troops, but not the nation. And when you commit to troops to fight a war, the nation has to support the troops. That was not true in Vietnam. And I think we were the recipients of what the 3 million men and women who served didn't get.
That's wonderfully said, Red, really wonderfully said. Let's see, I want to make sure. I want to make sure that you have a chance to say if there were some stories you wanted to tell or anecdotally or anything that I'm not assuming for a moment that my questions are exhaustive. So we got about 15 minutes before Dorothy shows up. And so I'd like to, there's a couple things we want to do. We want to get you tapping on a board we're going to put there. But also, right now, is there something that I haven't covered, or Mike, if you see something that you'd like to talk about?
I would suggest telling the story about, I would go through the shoot down, just take a few minutes to talk about the shoot down, and elaborate on that, about you and Kelly discussing about when to eject, the whole way you normally do.
Yeah.
Talk about being taken and going into your cell, but include them there, about asking yourself, there in the jungle, partially paralyzed, why me, God? Why
Yeah.
And then you're going in to see the cell block, to see Bill Metzger, and saying, why not me? So I think that's a powerful part of the story.
My navigator.
I would start off on May 19th, 1967.
On May 19, 1967, flying with Lieutenant James Kelly Patterson, who's missing from that mission, who was alive on the ground for 3 or 4 days, disappeared, had a badly broken leg, and we still, until this day, don't know what happened to him. But then, at the time, you aren't thinking about that. You're just thinking about survival yourself. And I was captured and taken to Hanoi and underwent my 2 weeks of torture. And again, my faith began to kick in, and they moved me in with Bill Metzger. And when I saw Bill Metzger lying on the floor with those critical wounds, that bone from his left arm exposed, 16 inches by 4 inches, where a piece of shrapnel was embedded, and his right leg was broken. When I saw him, I changed the question I'd formed early on about why me, God, to why not me. It occurred to me that God might have some purpose for my being there, perhaps to take care of him, and that gave me a purpose of being there. And was able to grab onto that and live with him for 2.5, 3 years later, and he too came home with me in excellent health. He was kind of had acute though. His right leg, he was 6'3" on his left leg and about 5'9" on his right leg because the heel 3 inches overlapped. And when they came home, up there he would run around on that short leg and kind of got a big kick out of it because the enemy didn't have the ability to extend it. So when he came home though, they re-broke his leg, extended it 1.25 inches, which they were able to do through the muscle and tension. So he's now 6'3" on one leg and about 5'9" or 5'10" on the other, and they went into his left leg and sawed out about that much bone and put it in a steel rod, and so he's now 5'9" on both legs. So, it's amazing what they can do, but he had an open wound for more than 5 years. He came out with an open wound and came out, he was healed in a matter of weeks. And we had several POWs like that. Dale Osborne, A4 pilot, had an open wound for more than 5 years. He too came out. But seeing guys like that, you realize there's a reason for you, there's a purpose for you being there, and you have a purpose that can be useful and helpful. And I gained a lot of strength from that, I think, and became very close to those men who, like Bill Metzger, who came out. I speak to him frequently, and he's a good man, and he was 13 years younger than me, so just a young buck. But
in one of the accounts I read, you're quoted as talking about when you were toward the end of the war, or when you were close to being released, conditions got better, the discipline, changed, and you noticed that the sort of selfish side of human nature started to come in. People wanted more for themselves. Like under the adversity, under this challenge, the best in men had risen. But once things started to lax again, that some of the worst started to come up again. You at least were quoted talking about that. Do you remember that, sir?
not exactly. Mike, do you know?
Just the boredom of, and then when things eased up, when it became more comfortable, it was little nitpicky things that would cause your division amongst the people. It was what Patrick said about the adversity caused you to group together and be strong. But when things got lax or
Yes, that's a good point. It's when the enemy was torturing us, we rallied as a united front, came stronger and stronger. The more they went after us, the stronger we got as a group. But when the torture stopped after Ho Chi Minh's death in 1969, in fact, my torture in 69, that period was that's when the torture began to back off, not only because of Ho Chi Minh's death, but because the wives in this country were organized into a very strong political force, and perhaps became the strongest force this country has ever known, apolitical. Because when a wife can get up and says, "I haven't heard from my husband for 7 years," they have great impact. And I think because of that, we realized there was just a real value in that experience from that angle.
Yeah. Do you want to get the tapping, Kenny? I'm going to ask you, sir, to tap a little message. We're going to do this with every one of your fellow POWs because the tap code was such an important part of things. Can we put that up on a box so that we put the knuckle up? Maybe maybe
maybe share.
Do with the knuckle up or
You know what?
Chair's too high.
Kent, that lens case there is probably the right height. That way we can hide the knuckle higher, because he's tall, so.
And I also have these, Patrick.
Great. Oh, yeah. Red, can you either instruct us or yourself make something similar to the ball that you made and tossed 5,000 times?
Oh, it was cotton from Bill Metzger's wounds gauze.
Yeah, that's gauze.
Yeah.
We could open that up,
Yeah.
and maybe you could just tell us the size it was and we
Okay.
make it up or.
Okay.
This off for a second.
You can use the Cardellini if you want now, Ken, because it's high up. It won't be visible.
You want to use the box or the gauze?
No, the gauze inside. Here, we'll help you.
Okay.
I'm gonna cut for a second, Ken.
I can